Penguin Random House Audio presents Blood Beneath the Snow by Alexandra Kennington. Read for you by Ellie Gossage. For Owen, every moment of my life is better with you in it. Author's note. This novel contains heavy themes and topics that might not be suitable for all readers. I hope the following list will be helpful in allowing you to decide whether reading this novel is in your best interest. Whether you choose to continue reading or not, I'm grateful you took the time to pick up this book. Take care of yourself, friend. This book includes the following: alcoholism, side character, attempted murder of an infant, blood and mild gore, deaths of loved ones, discussion of suicidal ideation and mention of a suicide attempt, past, no graphic details. Domestic abuse of an adult child by a parent, includes physical abuse, emotional abuse by religious leaders, explicit sex scenes, all consensual, homophobia by political leaders, kidnapping, murder, self-harm, strong language, war, and violence. Chapter 1. I stood shivering beneath my cloak in the temple plaza and wondered what would happen if I spat in the face of a god. The press of bodies against me on every side still wasn't enough to keep the chill at bay and the frigid early morning temperatures. I glared up at the statue in front of me, one of the 7 adorning the steps of the temple. The god of fire, Hjalmar, stared off into the distance, with stone flames dancing over his outstretched palms. It was fitting I'd end up in front of him, considering he'd blessed the worst of my brothers. If I spat in his face, would gasps echo across the crowd? Would priests descend from the temple steps, scythes in hand to haul me away? Would Hjalmar himself cause me to burst into flames where I stood until I was nothing more than a pile of ash? The gods of air, water, earth, sky, and body on either side of him were almost identical, the only differences lying in the depiction of their abilities carved in the stone. To the right of Hjalmar, directly in the center of the 7, was the only goddess, Aloysa, who gave gifts of the soul. 7 deities, and every single one of them hated me. My best friend nudged me, clearly sensing the emotions bubbling beneath my surface. "You good?" Freya muttered, quietly enough that only I could hear. Around us, the buzz of excited conversation hummed. The streets were packed to the brim, and we were surrounded on every side by the god-touched. Freya and I blended in with those standing in the front of the crowd. Today, we looked like wealthy citizens and obedient worshippers. Our realities couldn't have been further from our disguises. The hoods of our cloaks were pulled tight around our faces, obscuring us from easy recognition in the dawn light. The last thing we wanted was anyone noticing 2 of the most infamous godforsaken hiding in plain sight at the front of the crowd on a ritual day. As Freya waited for my answer, a single curl slipped across her forehead, unable to stay contained. I calmed the anger flaring in my chest and reached out to push the lock of hair behind her ear once more. Glancing down for what must have been the 10th time in 5 minutes to check that the bundle of decoy fabric was in Freya's arms, I nodded sharply. "Fine." She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Whether from cold or nerves, I couldn't tell. This small act of rebellion felt heavier than the others we'd carried out before. Today was my last chance to make an impact before I was carted off to another country to become the wife of a man I'd never met. When the god-touched whispered of our anarchy, they often used the word barbarous. But I doubted anything Freya, Halvar, our other partner in crime, and I concocted, was as barbarous as using one's only daughter as a political pawn. "You shouldn't have given me your breakfast," Freya said, crossing her arms. "You always get irritable when you haven't eaten." I forced a smile. "I wanted to make sure you had a clear head for this. Don't begrudge me that." With the war draining our supplies so quickly, and this winter being so harsh, there was never enough food to go around. Of course, that meant Freya and the other godforsaken were rationing their food, while the god-touched still managed to eat 3 meals a day. I tried to offer a portion of my food to her or Arna, our other friend, every day, but they usually refused. If not for her trepidation about this morning's plan, I doubted she would have accepted my offering today. The temple loomed in front of us. As was the case every time I observed it, I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Once, in my grandparents' time, the building had been an homage to our country's roots. But after our neighboring country to the south, Krillian, opened their borders to visitors, those same grandparents decided they appreciated the smoother lines and expensive stone of foreign architecture. The old temple was torn down and rebuilt into what it was today, a creation of white stone so pure the falling flakes disappeared in its orbit. The roof pivoted into two sharp angles representing two hands reaching for the heavens, where the pantheon of gods we all worshipped remained. I tapped my foot, growing impatient. The ritual and ceremony were supposed to start first thing in the morning, while the sun rose over the hills in the east. But here we all stood, blowing hot puffs of breath over our numbing hands, still waiting as the sun ascended in the sky. The chatter of the crowd closed in around me, and I fumed at how normal the God-touched sounded. They discussed what might still be available at the market despite the shortages, what parties they were attending later this week, whether their spouses and children were due back from the front lines in this round of military rotations. All the while, their expensive jewelry flashed in the dappled sunlight, and they basked in the warmth of their fur-lined cloaks, as if they all weren't here to witness a murder. I tried not to think about the God-forsaken, my own people, the ones at the back of the crowd, dreading what the next hour would bring, knowing they'd see blood of their own spilled on the altar of the gods, and then be expected to go about their day as if nothing had happened. I wondered if any would lose toes or fingers from frostbite after enduring the frigid conditions of midwinter in their worn shoes and their thin cloaks, fraying at the edges, whether their children's ribs were showing in the wake of a war they despised, whether they'd go home and cry silently for a few moments, hugging their families tight, as they wondered why it was worth living another day. My thoughts were interrupted by the temple doors swinging open. The crowd fell silent immediately, every head bowing low. I stared at the priests for a moment too long before Freya elbowed me, and I directed my gaze to the ground as well. The holy men still managed to make me shudder, even after having spent a lifetime in close contact with them. They dressed entirely in white, in robes stretching from their necks to their wrists and ankles. Veils covered their hair and faces so that they blended in perfectly with the snowy landscape, except for the eyes. The fabric of their veils was pinned to the necklines of their robes, meaning not a single inch of skin was visible on any of the priests. Above each one's forehead was an eye embroidered with blood-red thread, eerie enough to make both the God-touched and the God-forsaken feel the priest was peering directly into the depths of their soul. I hated the priests almost as much as I hated the gods. An endless stream of them flooded out the doors until they had filled the steps of the structure, the blades of their sides winking in the sun. The last to exit brought with him a white cloth, with another embroidered eye on it to drape over the altar. Fury ripped through me at the sight, but I forced myself to stay still. My fingernails bit half-moons into the flesh of my palms, and I busied my mind with the reminder of what I was here to do. "Every priest in the country must be here," Freya whispered as we surveyed them. "I've never seen this many in one place before. Do you think they traveled for the ritual?" "Who knows?" I murmured, feeling the telltale furrow of my brows appear. I wasn't expecting them all to be here. This might be harder than we thought. My friend nodded, readjusting the bundle of fabric in her arms. "Guess we'll see how fast we can run." Another figure exited the temple. The queen. She'd once confided to me when I was a small child that the crown she wore today was her favorite, an arch that stretched from behind one ear to the other, hugging tightly to her hair, rays projecting out like a halo to frame her face. The gold of it glimmered in the morning sunlight, contrasting against her dark black hair. Her gown was a deep blood red, one of our national colors. It flowed like liquid, and I found myself wondering if she was freezing beneath the fabric. It certainly didn't look warm. She stepped to the center of the dais and stood before the altar. My eyes found my feet, and I clenched my jaw as if the tension would prevent her.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?